Have you noticed how uncomfortable they get when you stop asking for permission? Or when you stop checking if your opinion is right before expressing it? What about when you simply decide, act, and exist without consulting the invisible manual of how to be an appropriate woman? There's something about your natural power that deeply bothers them. And it's not because you are aggressive, arrogant, or inappropriate. It's because you've discovered something they hoped you would never discover. You feel it, don't you? That strange tension when you shine too brightly in a meeting. The uncomfortable silence when you make a decision without asking for advice. The way some men recoil, not with fear, but with something deeper, more primitive. You start to question yourself. Am I being too much? Should I perhaps retreat a little? And then you do it. You diminish yourself. You apologize for taking up space. You transform your strength into palatable gentleness. However, ancient philosophers mapped this dynamic millennia ago. They knew a secret about feminine power that is still carefully hidden, disguised, and denied today. Hypatia of Alexandria was not just a brilliant mathematician in the 4th century. She was a woman who understood something fundamental about the nature of feminine power and why it threatens established structures. Hypatia taught philosophy, mathematics, and astronomy at a time when women could barely speak in public. But she didn't just speak, she led. Powerful men traveled cities to hear her. She didn't ask permission to exist. She simply existed with such natural force that it became undeniable. And Hypatia discovered something that still makes insecure men recoil today. Feminine power doesn't need to justify itself. It doesn't need to be soft, palatable, or approved. It simply is. She called this innate authority, a woman's ability to exist in her fullness without needing external validation. And this, according to her, is exactly what patriarchal systems need to keep dormant. Innate authority is not arrogance or aggression. It is your ability to trust your own inner wisdom, to make decisions based on your combined intuition and intellect, without needing anyone to validate your choices. It's you knowing that your ideas have value, that your presence has weight, that your word has power, regardless of who is in the room. But look what happens when you start to access this innate authority. The men around you begin a subtle but devastating psychological game. First, they try to put you in your place through microaggressions disguised as advice, such as, "You should consider being less intense. Maybe you could listen more," or "Are you sure about that?" When that doesn't work, they resort to emotional gaslighting. They question your sanity, your femininity, your ability to form relationships. Examples include, "You're being too emotional. No man will want a woman like that," or "You need to learn to be more submissive." It's as if you were a flame that has grown beyond the size they consider safe, so they start to blow, trying to diminish you, not to extinguish you completely because they need your light, but to keep you at a size that doesn't make them feel small. You become a threat not because you are aggressive, but because your mere existence in fullness exposes the fragility of egos that depend on your diminishment to feel great. And then you start to internalize this pressure. You begin to censor yourself even before speaking. You downplay your achievements in conversations. You apologize for having strong opinions. You become an edited version of yourself, always a little smaller, a little quieter, a little more appropriate. The deepest betrayal is not them trying to diminish you. It's you collaborating with your own diminishment. And here's the cruel irony. The more you diminish yourself to be loved and accepted, the less genuinely interesting you become. The men who were initially intimidated by your strength now feel bored by your docility. You've lost exactly what made you magnetic, your untamed authenticity. But let's be honest about one thing. No one can diminish you without your permission. No one can silence you if you refuse to stay quiet. No one can steal your power if you don't voluntarily surrender it. Every time you censor yourself not to bother, you're not being kind. You're being complicit in your own oppression. Are you afraid of being alone if you're too much? So you prefer to be accompanied while being too little? Do you think true love requires you to be smaller than you really are? Simone de Beauvoir, another giant of feminist thought, said something that should be etched into every woman's soul. No biological, psychic, or economic destiny defines the figure that the human female presents in society. Your fear of being too much isn't about others. It's about yourself. It's about the terror of discovering how powerful you really are. Because if you discover it, you'll have to take responsibility for that strength. You'll have to stop hiding behind others' approval. Hypatia didn't just theorize about innate authority, she lived it. And her method was surprisingly simple. She stopped asking permission to exist. Simone Weil, a 20th century French philosopher, called this pure attention, the ability to exist without apologizing, to think without censoring yourself, to act without seeking approval. It's not about becoming tough or insensitive. It's about becoming real. But let me be clear about what this journey involves. You will bother people. You will discover who truly loves you versus who only loved the diminished version of you. Some relationships will end. Some friendships will reveal themselves to be based on your smallness. And yes, it will be lonely at first, because a woman who refuses to diminish herself is rare. A woman who trusts her own authority is a threat to the status quo. But imagine yourself like this: a woman who walks into a room and doesn't check if she's appropriate. A woman who expresses her opinion without seeking approval on the faces around her. A woman who makes decisions based on her inner wisdom, not on the fear of rejection. Imagine yourself being yourself, complete, untamed, authentic, and not apologizing for it. This woman attracts genuine respect, not the condescending kind of respect you gain when you are small and harmless. She attracts true love, not the superficial adoration you receive when you are convenient. And here's what happens when you stop diminishing yourself. The right men feel inspired by your strength, not threatened by it. They see a woman in her fullness and think, how can I grow to match this? Instead of, how can I diminish this to feel bigger? You stop attracting men who need you to be small and start attracting men who celebrate your greatness. Hypatia was murdered by fanatical Christians in 415 AD. Do you know why? Not because she was evil or dangerous, but because she represented something they couldn't control. A woman who knew her own power and refused to hide it. The same force that killed her still exists today. It just uses more subtle methods: gaslighting, emotional manipulation, social isolation. Most women will never discover their true power because it's easier to be small and approved than to be great and questioned. It's more comfortable to ask for permission than to assume authority. But you are not the majority. If you've made it this far, if something within you recognizes itself in these words, you already know the truth. You weren't born to be convenient. You were born to be powerful. If this message touched something deep within you, share this content, not for me, but for the next woman who still believes she needs to be smaller to be loved. Every like, every share is a vote against the culture of female diminishment. It is a declaration that powerful women are not aberrations. We are the norm being restored. And subscribe to the channel, because this is just the first truth. There's much more they hope you never discover about yourself. Hypatia died for knowing her power. You will live for the same reason. The choice is yours. It always has been.